If you're a mechanic who knows your way around a car or a piece of heavy equipment, you've got skills. You know your way around an engine block, no doubt. But what happens when you take that engine and you stick it in a boat? Well, suddenly, you're in a whole new world. So in this explainer, we're going to bridge that gap between the workshop on land and the unique challenges of the sea.
All right, so here's our game plan. We're going to start with what looks familiar, the engine block itself. Then we dive into the brutal reality of constant load and the ever-present threat of water. We'll talk about how cooling and exhaust systems are totally reimagined, look at the endless fight against corrosion and fire, and wrap it all up with the critical mindset you absolutely need to have.
So you pop open the engine hatch on a boat and you might think, hey, I know that engine. And you wouldn't be wrong. A lot of marine engines, especially from guys like Mercruiser or Volvo Pinta, they actually start out as good old automotive blocks from companies like General Motors. But that's pretty much where the similarities end.
And this is where it gets really interesting. Every single part gets a rethink. Take the camshaft. In a car, it's all about high RPM horsepower, right? In a boat, forget it. It's ground for massive low-end torque, all that grunt you need to push a heavy hull up onto a plane. Or check out the freeze plugs. That steel one from an auto parts store? Yeah, saltwater will eat that for lunch. It has to be brass or bronze. This whole process is called marinization, and it's the key to everything.
So why go through all this trouble? Why change everything? Well, it all boils down to two relentless enemies that a marine engine faces every single second it's running: a crushing constant load and the ever-present corrosive threat of water.
I love this quote because it paints the perfect picture. Just think about that for a second. There's no coasting on the water. There's no taking your foot off the gas and just rolling downhill. The engine is always under load, always pushing against incredible resistance. It's like running a marathon, but at a sprinter's pace.
And here are the numbers behind that stress, and they are just wild. Your car on the highway, it's barely breaking a sweat, just sipping maybe 20% of its available power. A boat engine, on the other hand, is often running near wide-open throttle just to stay on plane. And it's doing that while pushing against water that is 800 times denser than air. So these things are built for a duty cycle that would literally tear a normal car engine to pieces.
Okay, so an engine working that hard is going to get hot. Really, really hot. But you don't have a giant grill with air rushing through it at 60 miles an hour. So how do you cool it? Simple. You use the giant body of water the boat is sitting in. It's the world's biggest radiator. The most basic way to do this is called raw water cooling. And honestly, if you're coming from the auto world, this is going to sound completely insane. You are literally sucking up lake water or ocean water and pumping it directly through the cooling passages of the engine block and heads before spitting it back out.
Now, why in the world would anyone do this? Well, it's dead simple. Not a lot of parts, doesn't weigh much. But the trade-off? Oh man, it is a huge one. You are basically inviting salt water, sand, silt, and little bits of seaweed to a party right inside your engine. It's an incredibly destructive system that guarantees corrosion and a much shorter engine life.
Now let's look at something that will make a lot more sense to you. A closed cooling system. This is just like your car. It uses a sealed loop of nice clean antifreeze to keep the engine cool. The big difference is, instead of an air-to-liquid radiator, it uses a liquid-to-liquid heat exchanger. And this diagram shows you exactly how it works. You see those two separate loops? You've got your clean antifreeze doing its thing, cycling through the engine. It then passes through the heat exchanger. At the same time, a separate pump brings in raw seawater, which flows through a bunch of little tubes inside that exchanger, pulling the heat away from the antifreeze. And here's the most important part. The two liquids never, ever mix. The engine stays safe and clean.
Okay, so we've handled the engine's heat, but what about the exhaust? In your car, a glowing red-hot exhaust pipe under the chassis is no big deal. But put that same hot pipe inside a confined fiberglass boat hull filled with gas fumes? Yeah, that's a recipe for a very, very bad day. This is exactly why most boats you'll work on use a wet exhaust. It's a genius idea, really. That same raw water we used for cooling, after it's done its job, it gets injected directly into the exhaust stream. This cools the exhaust gases way down, making it safe enough to use regular rubber hoses and fiberglass mufflers. A dry exhaust, on the other hand, can hit 1,200 degrees Fahrenheit. It requires massive, heavy insulation and is a serious fire hazard.
All right, let's do a quick fire round on how those two big ideas, fighting corrosion and preventing fire, apply to some parts you already know very well. This is marinization in action.
Your standard car starter? Can't use it. It would rust apart, and more importantly, it could create a spark. A spark in an engine bay filled with gas fumes, the bilge, is catastrophic. So a marine starter is sealed and coated to stop both. The alternator, it has special screens to trap any internal sparks. The fuel pump, it has 2 diaphragms, so if one fails, fuel doesn't pour into the bottom of the boat. Every single change is designed to prevent a disaster.
Okay, get ready to unlearn one of your most basic instincts as a mechanic. This is a traditional stuffing box. It's what seals the propeller shaft where it passes through the hull. And here's the thing, it's designed to leak. That's right, a slow, steady drip of about 2 to 3 drops a minute isn't just okay, it's absolutely necessary to cool and lubricate the shaft.
And this is so important. Your brain, my brain, every mechanic's brain screams, "Leak, bad, tighten it." But if you crank down on that nut until the dripping stops, you're gonna cook it. The packing will overheat, it'll melt, and you could seriously damage the prop shaft. You have to learn to accept and even set a good leak.
So when you boil it all down, becoming a marine mechanic isn't really about learning a new engine. You've already got that part down. It's about developing a completely new philosophy, a new mindset that's built around defending the machine from a very hostile environment.
Here's the biggest takeaway. On land, you're usually fixing a single part that failed from normal wear and tear. On the water, you are in a constant 24/7 battle against an environment that is actively trying to corrode, infiltrate, and destroy the entire machine from the outside in.
The skills you already have are the perfect foundation. But the real question is, can you shift your thinking? Can you go from just fixing the machine to defending it from its environment? Because out on the water, mastering that environment, well, that's the real challenge.